Hey there, horror fans. Welcome back to Real Talk Horror Edition, your go-to podcast for all things eerie, blood-curdling, and disturbingly delightful in horror cinema. I'm your host, Josh, and I couldn't be more excited to dive into today's cult favorite. Whether you're a die-hard horror buff or just love the thrill of a good scare, you're in the right place, and thanks for tuning in. In this podcast, we peel back the layers on horror, exploring everything from sinister themes and iconic scares to the genius or sometimes the madness behind the storytelling. We're all about analyzing what makes these movies enduring, scream-worthy masterpieces or sometimes horrific missteps. From plot and character depth to cinematography, sound, and beyond, we're here to celebrate the spine-tingling, the campy, and the downright terrifying. Today we're diving into the wildest of horror comedy hybrids ever made, a cult classic that's equal parts gruesome and hilarious. We're talking about Re-Animator, a film packed with campy humor, unforgettable performances, and absolutely insane gore. This isn't just horror, it's a mad scientist experiment gone spectacularly right. Buckle up, because this one's a ride you won't forget. So let's get into it. So as we said, today we're shining a light on Re-Animator, the 1985 horror comedy directed by Stuart Gordon, adapted loosely from H.P. Lovecraft's classic tale. This film stands out as a mad blend of horror and humor that has earned its place in the cult classic Hall of Fame. In Re-Animator, we meet Herbert West, an eccentric and obsessive medical student with a groundbreaking but deeply disturbing discovery: a neon green serum that can reanimate the dead. West's thirst for pushing the boundaries of life and death quickly spirals out of control, leading to a series of shocking, gory, and often hilarious reanimations. As West drags his roommate Dan Kane into the chaos, the experiments unleash increasingly grotesque and violent results that are unpredictable as they are horrifying. Gordon's film takes us on a roller coaster of the absurd, combining pitch-black humor, jaw-dropping visuals, and over-the-top gore to create an unforgettable experience that's just as hard to shake, no matter how much you may want to. Re-Animator is horror that doesn't hold back, delivering moments so outrageous they teeter between shocking and hilarious. Whether you're in it for the laughs or the scares, this film is an unforgettable dive into reanimation horror at its most outrageous. Re-Animator may have a relatively straightforward plot, but it's the unrestrained twists, pitch-black humor, and constant barrage of shocks that make it truly unforgettable. From the moment Herbert West injects his first dose of the mysterious reagent serum, the story hurtles forward with relentless energy. Each experiment leads to a chain reaction of increasingly chaotic and violent consequences, keeping us glued to the screen as we wonder just how far the madness will go. The pacing is tight and unforgiving, building suspense and delivering payoffs in quick succession, right up to that jaw-dropping finale. The simplicity of the narrative structure actually works to the film's advantage, creating a framework that's less the bizarre, gory, and comedic elements that are allowed to take the stage. By not overcomplicating the storyline, the film is free to lean into the absurdity of its premise. If there's a weakness in the storytelling here, it's that the characters occasionally make leaps in logic that push any boundaries of believability, even by horror standards. But honestly, when you're dealing with headless corpses, wielding scalpels, and undead bodies rampaging through a hospital, reality has already taken a back seat. Now, what truly sets Re-Animator apart from other horror films, especially of its time, is its razor-sharp, darkly comedic tone. Horror comedies often walk a fine line, but Re-Animator strides confidently, blending genuine terror with a twisted sense of humor that's both intentional and organic. Herbert West's obsessive, deadpan approach to this experience gives the film a unique edge, making him both a mad scientist and an unintentional source of laughs. The story keeps us on our toes, switching from shocks to laughs in a way that feels seamless and never really forced. Ultimately, Re-Animator doesn't just aim to horrify, it revels in making us laugh at the audacity of it all. The film's unique ability to balance gore and humor, shock and satire, make it a rare entry in the horror comedy genre that really knows exactly what it is and pulls it off masterfully. It's a film that will leave you squirming one moment and laughing out loud the next. A combination that's hard to find and even harder to pull off. Now, Jeffrey Combs gives an unforgettable performance as Herbert West, the eccentric and unhinged medical student with the obsession of conquering death, and he really fuels the film's wild ride. Combs infuses West with this bizarre charm that makes him both chilling but oddly fascinating. His dry and unwavering delivery and intense laser-focused gaze give the character an eerie conviction, and it makes even his most insane experiments, even for a moment, seem plausible. Combs' performance is magnetic. Whether West is arguing the merits of his serum or defying the laws of nature, he's impossible to look away from. His portrayal strikes an amazing balance, making West a disturbingly endearing anti-hero that most of us end up wanting to root for, even as his actions spiral into complete and utter madness. Barbara Crampton, who's just one of the most amazing scream queens we've ever had, and Bruce Abbott both shine here as Megan and Dan, who play the reluctant moral compass to West's relentless ambition. Crampton brings this earnestness to Megan that makes her struggle genuinely heartbreaking, while Abbott's Dan is this grounded and sympathetic figure who's torn between his loyalty to West and his horror at the escalating consequences. Their chemistry together adds emotional depth and offer a necessary human perspective amid all of the chaos going on. David Gale also delivers a chilling, darkly humorous performance as Dr. Carl Hill, a lecherous and deeply unethical doctor who becomes the film's true villain. Gale takes villainy to new levels of grotesque camp, embracing the absurdity and with an unsettling, almost gleeful menace. His character's obsession with both West's research and Megan creates a villain as repulsive as he is captivating. Gale's turn as Dr. Hill adds layers to the dark comedy of the film's already macabre tone, especially in those scenes that are as memorable as they are shocking. Now, Re-Animator isn't about deep character arcs or complex transformation. It's about that unyielding drive of the characters and the horrifying consequences that follow. Herbert West is a man defined by his singular obsession, and he stays true to that obsession from beginning to end, a trait that makes him even more unsettling. West's lack of growth, his inability or unwillingness to learn from his mistakes, amplifies the horror as he doubles down on his experiments without a shred of remorse or doubt. In contrast, Megan and Dan are the audience emotional anchors. They react with genuine fear, skepticism, and moral outrage that really contrasts the sharply with West's really cold clinical ambition. Their horror and resistance to West's actions provide a human element, grounding the film's chaotic narrative in something more relatable. This balance keeps the story engaging as we watch them struggle to maintain their humanity in the face of increasingly horrific events, while West becomes even more detached and fanatical. While, like I said, Re-Animator isn't focused on character depth, The distinct personalities and strong performances make the cast memorable, and they keep us, in the viewers, invested, highlighting this extreme nature of West's journey and the horrific stakes of his obsession. Re-Animator may be packed with outrageous humor and gore, but beneath the surface, it's also a dark exploration of obsession and the ethical boundaries of science. Herbert West embodies the archetype of the mad scientist, someone so fixated on pushing the limits of medical knowledge that he disregards any moral or ethical concerns. His relentless pursuit of the power to conquer death turns him into a cautionary figure, warning of the dangers that arise when scientific ambition overrides humanity and conscience. The film raises questions about the price of knowledge and the moral cost of progress, asking us to consider, just because we can do it, does it really mean we should? The theme of playing God runs throughout the film, as West's experiments repeatedly disrupt the natural order, leading to terrifying consequences. The forbidden knowledge theme, a classic in horror, reminds us of the hubris that comes with trying to control life and death. In West's world, death is something to be conquered, not accepted, and the notion drives him to increasingly reckless and horrific actions. The result is a compelling, if grotesque, meditation on the limits of human power and the thin line between genius and madness. The film's central symbol is the glowing green reagent, a fluid that pulses with an eerie, almost hypnotic glow. It's the literal lifeblood of West's experiments and represents both the allure of scientific discovery and the dangerous temptation to wield unnatural power. The reagent is mesmerizing in its luminescent beauty, but ultimately deadly, capturing West's ambition in liquid form, potent, fascinating, lethal. It's the Pandora's box of the film. Once unleashed, it brings not salvation, but chaos and destruction, much like West's unquenchable thirst for power and knowledge. The reagent also serves as a metaphor for addiction. Just as West is unable to resist the lure of his scientific experiments, the reagent seems to draw him in further and further, feeding an insatiable need to push boundaries no matter the cost. In this way, the reagent becomes a symbol of scientific obsession gone horribly wrong, one that turns human curiosity into a vehicle for horror. The glowing serum is both the film's literal tool of resurrection and a symbolic warning, showing the devastating effects of a mind that is seduced by its own discoveries. The cinematography and visuals in Re-Animator are the ultimate in horror camp. Director Stuart Gordon embraces a gritty, visceral style that really plunges us right into the heart of the madness. From the sterile, eerie glow of the lab's harsh lighting to the grotesque close-ups of twisted bodies, every frame is designed to immerse us in the morbid thrill of Herbert West's experiments. The practical effects, the oozing, bloody, in-your-face, give the film a uniquely tangible quality that makes each gory scene feel disturbingly real. In an era when horror effects have often relied on suggestion, Re-Animator now goes all in, like Evil Dead movies just before it. With these relentless visuals that ensure you don't just watch the horror unfold, you experience it. The lab scenes are especially effective in conveying the chaotic world where West's obsession lives. The cluttered, dimly lit spaces filled with scientific equipment, they make you feel like you're on the edge of a terrible discovery, one that could explode at any moment. The industrial look of the settings enhance the sense of West's science is risky, crude, and fundamentally unnatural, an assault on the natural order as much as on common sense. The choice to shoot with practical effects instead of digital only amplifies this raw, gritty feel, making the horror feel closer, less polished, and all the more unsettling. One of the film's most unforgettable images is Dr. Hill's decapitated head coming to life. Operating independently of his body as he continues his nefarious plan, this shocking visual has become a cult symbol of the film itself. A darkly absurd moment that epitomizes Re-Animator's ability to blend humor and horror. The way Dr. Hill's severed head communicates with his body is both hilarious and ultimately horrifying, reminding us of the movie's subversive charm. It's a scene that requires us to suspend our disbelief, but it rewards us with an image we'll never forget. Other standout moments include the reanimated corpses themselves, which have a Frankenstein's monster look, shambling and twitching with grotesque, uncanny life. Each of these walking nightmares is a tribute to the practical effects team, who managed to bring the dead back with a blend of humor and horror. The effects are gritty, imperfect, and surreal. They give the corpse a nightmarish quality that modern CGI can rarely replicate. The film's visuals capture the essence of the story, a blend of the absurd, the horrific, and the darkly funny, creating a sensory experience that is as haunting as it is entertaining. Re-Animator's sound design amplifies the chaotic energy that's permeating the film, using an array of unsettling, abrasive sounds to heighten every moment of horror and suspense. The lab scenes are filled with the hum of scientific equipment, the clatter of metal, and the bubbling of strange substances, creating an atmosphere that's both clinical and ominous. When Herbert West's reanimated experiments start to move, the sound design intensifies, capturing the disturbing noises of groaning, gasping, and thrashing bodies. These visceral sounds bring the undead characters to life in a way that's jarring and immersive, and it makes us feel the tension and unpredictability of West's world. In moments of extreme action, the sound crescendos to reflect the frenzy on screen. The sounds of scalpel slicing, bones breaking, and bodies convulsing are exaggerated to push the horror just over the edge into absurd. These auditory details make each reanimation scene feel explosive, reinforcing the sense that West's experiments are unpredictable forces of nature, beyond his control. The skillful layering of these sounds keeps us on edge, unsure of what the next grotesque surprise will be and when it will hit. The score here, composed by Richard Band, is another essential layer of the film's identity, establishing a playful yet ominous tone that perfectly matches the film's horror-comedy blend. With a classic horror feel, reminiscent of Bernard Herrmann's iconic Psycho score, Band's music combines tension building, strings with an eerie, mischievous twist. This creates a sense of anticipation, and it makes us feel both uneasy and entertained, as though the film is winking at its own excesses. The main theme is catchy and has a slightly whimsical quality, and it reminds us not to take the gory scenes too seriously and to instead revel in the movie's outrageous spectacle. In key scenes, the music swells dramatically, evoking the grandiosity of a gothic horror while maintaining an ironic distance. Band's score captures the essence of Herbert West's character, ambitious, a bit maniacal, and entirely unconcerned with limits. The musical undercurrent, which fluctuates between suspenseful and almost playful, adds depth to the scenes that might otherwise veer too heavily into camp. The tonal balance it achieves supports Re-Animator's unique brand of horror, in which the scares and laughs are inextricably linked. The result is a score that doesn't just accompany the film but enhances the personality, making it both chilling and weirdly fun, embodying that spirit of Re-Animator in every note. Re-Animator wastes no time plunging us into its twisted world with an unrelenting pace that mirrors the obsessive energy of Herbert West himself. The film's quick pacing aligns with its chaotic anything-goes approach, giving us the sense that we're on a relentless ride through the mad scientist's escalating horrors. From the opening scenes, the film moves from one shocking experiment to another. Rarely does it slow down enough to let us catch our breath. This swift, almost frantic progression enhances the sense of unpredictability and keeps us fully engaged, never quite knowing what grotesque or darkly humorous twist will come next. Rather than lingering on one moment in particular, Re-Animator rushes forward with a manic sense of urgency. Each scene builds on the previous, intensifying the horror and the dark humor in a way that feels like an avalanche. By the time we reach the climax, the relentless pacing has escalated into pure pandemonium, creating a visceral, high-stakes atmosphere that mirrors the desperation and obsession fueling West's experiments. The rapid flow of events also helps us overlook any narrative gaps or logical leaps, as the story whisks us along so quickly that there's no time to stop and question what's really happening. The film's editing style is sharp, purposeful, and essential to creating the intense nerve-jangling rhythm. The quick cuts mirror the abrupt, volatile nature of the reanimations, keeping us on edge and adding to the shock value of each new horror. Stuart Gordon and his editing team carefully time these cuts to punctuate the most disturbing and darkly humorous moments, allowing the story to hit hard without ever overstaying in any single scene. The cuts often come right after a particularly shocking or absurd moment, and it heightens their impact by leaving us stunned and then moving on to the next revelation before we can fully process what we just saw. One of the editing's standout qualities is how it balances suspenseful buildup with explosive bursts of action. The film allows a few moments of tension to simmer, only to break them with sudden, jarring edits that add to this grotesque atmosphere. This rhythmic balance of suspense and action reflects West's increasingly reckless behavior, creating a momentum that feels simultaneously exhilarating and often out of control. The editing also enhances the humor, cutting away at just the right moment to play up the absurdity of certain scenes without letting them veer into overlay serious territory. In several key scenes, the editing is almost frenetic. It captures the chaos of West's experiments and the sheer unpredictability of his creations. Rapid, disorienting cuts accompany scenes of reanimated bodies flailing and lurching, placing us right in the middle of the action and reinforcing the sense that these experiments have taken on a life of their own. This editing style makes each reanimation feel like a fresh, visceral shock, maintaining our suspense throughout the film. Ultimately, the editing is integral to the pacing and style, and it amplifies Re-Animator's horror, humor, and chaotic energy in equal measure. While Re-Animator might not rely heavily on traditional jump scares, it offers plenty of visceral, unforgettable horror that makes it a standout in the genre. Rather than jolting us with quick frights, it slowly immerses us in an atmosphere of mounting dread, tapping into a deeper and more unsettling sense of horror. The grotesque visuals, from decaying corpses to unnervingly realistic reanimations, create moments of pure body horror that can be difficult to shake. The film makes horror fans squirm not through quick frights but by lingering on revolting outcomes of the experiments, pushing boundaries with visuals that are both shocking and quite grotesque. What's truly effective about the scare factor in Re-Animator is its unflinching portrayal of the dead brought back to life in violent and unpredictable ways. Each reanimation feels increasingly horrific as West's creations turn on him with a terrifying mixture of rage and confusion. The unpredictable behavior of these undead creatures keeps us on edge as we realize West's quest to conquer death has resulted in uncontrollable chaos. The slow revelation of the consequences of his experiments build a sense of dread that goes beyond shock value, burrowing into the philosophical horror of defying nature and death itself. Re-Animator does a great job of blending gore with dark humor, creating a unique horror experience that's chilling and absurd. The violence is extreme, yet executed in a way that feels deliberately campy and theatrical. It gives the film a tone that's serious enough to thrill, but absurd enough to entertain. This balance keeps the horror from feeling excessively bleak. It allows us to enjoy over-the-top visuals without feeling too disturbed. The gore is graphic. Bloody dissections, dismemberments, and decapitations abound, but the exaggerated executions keeps it firmly in the realm of dark fantasy, reminding us not to take it that seriously. The film's humor, meanwhile, amplifies the horror by giving us moments of reprieve before plunging us back into the madness. It's a rare feat for a horror movie to make audiences like us laugh and cringe in equal measure. But Re-Animator accomplishes this with ease. The campy, almost surreal quality of the violence enhances the film's absurdity, and it encourages us to revel in the chaos rather than recoil from it. Herbert West's deadpan reactions to those horrifying outcomes of his own experiments, for instance, underscore the film's willingness to embrace its own ludicrous premise. It makes each scene feel both terrifying and hilariously outlandish. By refusing to take itself too seriously, Re-Animator avoids becoming merely a shock-filled horror film and instead transforms into a carnival of the macabre, where each new grotesque revelation is both horrifying and darkly delightful. The film strikes that rare balance where the audience is horrified by what we're seeing, but simultaneously entertained by the sheer audacity of it all. This clever blend of horror and humor allows Re-Animator to appeal to fans of gore, as well as those who appreciate a more playful, tongue-in-cheek approach to horror, and it solidifies its status as a cult classic. Re-Animator is a non-stop thrill ride that's just as wild and unpredictable as its plot. From its opening moments to its explosive finale, this horror comedy delivers a unique blend of grotesque gore, dark humor, and over-the-top performances that keep you hooked throughout. The film may not be polished in the traditional sense. Its pacing may be fast and furious, and its characters more caricature than complex figures, but that's where its charm is. It's raw, unapologetically campy, and utterly gleeful in its embrace of both horror and humor. It takes risks that few horror films of the era dared to take, and it seems to have a blast doing so. It's the kind of movie that never takes itself seriously, and that's why it works so well. Every shocking moment is accompanied by a wink to the audience, reminding us that this is a film meant to entertain and provoke, not necessarily to terrify or make sense in a traditional narrative way. Despite its rough edges, the sheer audacity and energy of Re-Animator make it a timeless cult classic that has found a loyal following over the years. It's brimming with energy, innovation, and a delightfully twisted sense of humor that is unforgettable. Given all that, I rate Re-Animator a solid 8 out of 10. It might not be a perfect film, but it is undeniably one of the most entertaining, bizarre, and enjoyable experiences in horror cinema. Its irreverence, creativity, and charm more than make up for any of its narrative quirks, and it remains a standout in the genre even decades after its release. So if you're a fan of horror that doesn't take itself seriously and relishes in a good dose of splatter-filled fun, The Re-Animator should be at the top of your must-watch list. It's a film that boldly straddles the line between horror and comedy, making it an essential watch for anyone who loves cult cinema or the horror comedy subgenre. Whether you're a seasoned horror buff or new to the world of splatter films, Re-Animator offers a wild, unforgettable ride that's equal parts grotesque and hilarious. Simply put, it is a must-see for fans of inventive, out-of-the-box horror. So what did you think of Re-Animator? Did it leave you howling with laughter, cringing in disgust, or both? We want to hear from you. Drop us a message on social media, send in an email, or leave a review to share your thoughts on this wild ride. Your feedback helps us shape the show and keeps the conversation going. And speaking of exciting things coming your way, we've got something special lined up for our next series. After possibly a short break, we are going to dive deep into the iconic films of the one and only John Carpenter. From Halloween to The Thing and beyond, we'll be exploring the master of suspense, horror, and sci-fi. We're also going to take a look at his less horror sci-fi movies like Memoirs of the Invisible Man. We'll hit them all. Trust us, you will not want to miss this series. As always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Your support helps us keep those spooky vibes alive. Stay connected with us on Instagram and Threads at RealRealTalk, or shoot us an email at therealrealtalk@gmail.com. And thanks for tuning in. And until next time, stay creepy, stay weird, and as always, stay real.